My name is Priscilla Pacheco, and I'm 29 years old. 1 year ago, I was balancing a lukewarm pizza on my knee in the driver's seat of a car that smelled like desperation, old rain, and cheap marinara. Back then, I counted coins for gas. I slept with my shoes on because I never knew when someone would bang on the window and tell me to move. I dreamed in spreadsheets, overdue bills, and space heaters. My only benefit package was bruised apples from the grocery store discount bin and whatever dignity I could keep folded quietly in my chest. Now I wake up to sunlight through apartment windows I actually pay for. Not tinted civic glass. Not the cracked windshield of a car I called home because saying homeless felt too permanent. My mattress doesn't squeak. My bathroom has real towels. I have a key fob that opens a lobby door, not a crowbar wedged into a stuck trunk. Most mornings, I walk into Stratex with coffee in one hand and a badge around my neck that no longer says intern. I should be at peace. I should be glowing with gratitude, maybe even a little smug. And I am, sort of. I smile easier now. I sleep deeper. I buy overpriced hand soap because I like the smell. I've stopped flinching when someone says, "We're proud of you," but lately something has been wrong. Not with me. With Rick. Rick Carlton was the kind of man people lowered their voices around without realizing it. He didn't enter rooms. Rooms adjusted to him. He built Stratex like some people build walls around, pain precise, high, impossible to climb. He could read a forecast sheet in 30 seconds and find the one number everyone else missed. He remembered names, mistakes, promises, and debts. So when he started disappearing, I noticed. At first, it was small. A missed meeting. A casual reschedule dropped into my calendar. A vendor summit he suddenly couldn't stomach. He waved it off with jokes about being double booked or too old for another quarterly review monster. I tried to believe him. Rick carried Stratex like a second spine. Of course he was tired. Of course he needed rest. But the missed meetings began stringing together like blinking red lights. He vanished for hours. He joined calls late, even the ones he had scheduled himself. Once, I caught him staring at a spreadsheet for 5 full minutes. Not reading it. Staring. Then he blinked, like he had just come back from somewhere very far away. The first moment that truly scared me happened in the elevator. It was late, almost 9. I was leaving after finishing notes from a systems audit when the doors opened and Rick was inside, leaning against the wood-paneled wall. Not leaning like he was thinking. Leaning like gravity had become heavier for him than for everyone else. His shoulders were hunched. His face looked pale under the soft elevator lights. One hand pressed against the wall like it was the only thing keeping him upright. "Rough day?" I asked. He smiled, tired and crooked. "Just part of getting old, Priscilla." But Rick Carlton didn't get old. He upgraded. He outpaced. He left aging to people who couldn't afford specialists, ice baths, private chefs, and quiet medical miracles. Seeing him like that was like watching a skyscraper blink. A few days later, he missed our bi-weekly check-in completely. No call, no text, no clipped apology sent 2 minutes before the hour. When I followed up, his assistant emailed. Rick had to step out unexpectedly. He sends apologies. Apologies weren't his thing. Rick either showed up or explained. When I asked Kareem if he had seen Rick lately, he lowered his voice and said, "Yeah, but something's up. He looks thinner." That word sat in my stomach like a nail. Thinner. After that, the rumors started. Quiet ones. The kind whispered by senior analysts near the coffee machine. Burnout. Overworked. Delegation. Exit strategy. Someone laughed softly and said, "He's not 10 feet tall anymore, just tired. Happens." But I had seen that look before. Not on a Rick. On a woman I once worked with at the grocery store, who kept doing night shifts while going through chemo because rent didn't care about cancer. That look didn't mean tired. It meant trying to hide the fall. I didn't know what was happening yet. But I knew Rick. This wasn't a man scaling back. This was a man slipping silently and hoping no one was watching. Except I was. And the scariest part was, I didn't think he wanted to be caught. It was a Thursday when I saw his hand shake. We were in the boardroom, just a small internal session with Kareem, 2 mid-level VPs, and me, going over Q3 cost deltas. Nothing dramatic. No investors breathing down our necks. Just charts, caffeine, and fluorescent lights. Rick reached for his water. His fingers brushed the glass. Then stopped. The movement was tiny. Almost nothing. His hand hovered for half a second too long before he carefully wrapped it around the cup, like he was afraid it might break or worse, that he might drop it. The tremor was slight. Blink and you'd miss it. But I didn't blink. No one else noticed. Or maybe they did and chose the mercy of pretending. Kareem kept talking about margin control. Someone chuckled at a slide error. Rick took a sip, nodded once, and added a sharp comment about vendor inflation without missing a beat. But my mind stayed on that shake. Because once you start seeing something, you start seeing it everywhere. Rick's posture had changed. More collapsed at the neck, less power in his steps. He started using the stair handrail in a way he never had before. His assistant appeared in his place more often. His calendar began to look like a ghost town, with Rick-shaped holes in it. That afternoon, I knocked on his office door. "Got a second?" I asked. Rick looked up from behind his desk. The surface was cluttered, which was rare enough to feel like evidence. A coffee mug sat untouched near his elbow. "Yeah, Priscilla, come in. You okay?" I asked. He smiled, but his eyes were slow to join it. Loaded question. He smiled, but his eyes were slow to join it. Loaded question. "You've been off lately." For a second, I thought he might say it. I thought he might finally admit something was wrong. That maybe all the strange moments, the missed meetings, the pale face, the shaking hands would suddenly make sense. Instead, he leaned back. "Too many late nights," he said. "Getting older, maybe. Don't let the company card and expensive cologne fool you. I'm not immortal." "You've been forgetting meetings," he smirked faintly. "You sound like Kareem." Maybe Kareem has a point. Rick studied me for a few seconds. Not annoyed. Not defensive. Careful. Like he was measuring how much truth I could carry. "You ever get so tired?" he asked quietly. "That even good news feels like paperwork?" I nodded slowly. "I used to sleep in my car. Everything felt like paperwork." He let out a soft laugh. "Right. You'd know." Then nothing. No explanation. No confession. Just silence stretching between us like something alive. When I left his office, I realized I felt something unfamiliar. Not fear for myself. Fear for him. That weekend, I came into the office because apparently surviving poverty permanently destroys your ability to relax. Rick's office door was cracked open. The lights were off. I heard movement. I knocked once and pushed the door open. Rick sat on the couch beside the window, gripping his left wrist tightly. His breathing was controlled, but only barely. Not panic, not exactly pain. Something practiced. Like someone trying very hard not to lose control. "You okay?" He startled slightly before straightening. "Fine. Just needed a second." He wasn't fine. His face looked drained. Pale enough that even the dim office lighting couldn't hide it. Sweat darkened the fabric beneath his arms. Wrong. Everything about this felt wrong. He stood too fast. I moved instinctively to help. He lifted a hand. "Really, Priscilla, I'm okay." "You don't look okay." Dizzy spell. His voice came too quickly, too rehearsed. Then I noticed it. An orange prescription bottle sitting near his laptop. The label faced away from me, but the bottle itself was enough. Rick followed my eyes. Without missing a beat, he picked it up and slipped it into his drawer. Too smooth. Too practiced. Like this had happened before. Like hiding had become routine. The next Monday, Rick missed the executive check-in entirely. Kareem covered. No explanation. No message. Nothing. That afternoon, the office felt different. Stratex had always felt like one of those buildings built around a central pillar. Rick was that pillar. Now the structure felt slightly crooked. Small things started piling up. Quarterly reviews postponed, leadership meetings shortened, calendar invites canceled, his assistant appearing where Rick normally would. People noticed. They always do. Rumors started mutating. Burnout. Medical leave. Exit strategy. He's finally cashing out. Nobody said the scary version out loud, so everyone quietly thought it. One Thursday, during a finance review meeting, I finally saw what everyone else kept missing. Rick reached for a glass of water. His hand trembled. Not much, barely visible. But once you notice weakness in someone you believed was indestructible, you notice everything. His posture had changed. He used stair railings. He rubbed his temples constantly. He blinked slower, like his body was buffering. After the meeting ended, Kareem caught me staring. "You seeing it too?" I looked at him. "Yeah." He lowered his voice. "I've worked with him 12 years. Never seen him like this." That night, I stayed late finishing logistics reports. Almost everyone had gone home. The executive floor was quiet. Too quiet. As I passed Rick's office, I saw light under the door. Something told me to keep walking. Instead, I knocked. No answer. I opened the door. Rick sat behind his desk with his head lowered into one hand. An open drawer. Pill bottle beside it, cap off. For the first time, he didn't hide it. For the first time, he looked tired enough to forget. "You shouldn't still be here," he said quietly. "You shouldn't be alone." He gave a dry laugh. "Don't go soft on me now." I walked closer. "You're sick." He didn't answer. "I noticed weeks ago." Still silence, then finally a long exhale. Like the truth itself weighed something. "What is it?" I asked. He stared toward the window. "Something with too many syllables." "That's not an answer." "The doctors say manageable." Manageable. People only use that word when they're trying not to use worse ones. "And are you managing it?" Rick pulled his jacket tighter around himself, like suddenly he was cold. Then he said something so quietly, I almost missed it. "I'm trying to pretend it isn't real." And suddenly, all those missed meetings, the shaking hands, the empty stare, the disappearing, it all rearranged itself into one terrifying picture. Rick Carlton, the man who built Stratex, the man who built half my future, was falling apart, and he had decided to do it alone. For the next few days, Rick acted like that conversation never happened, which somehow made it worse. He still answered emails at 2 in the morning, still corrected forecast assumptions from memory, still showed up to meetings looking polished enough to fool anyone who wasn't paying attention. But now I was paying attention. Everyone was. Stratex had changed. The building still buzzed with keyboards and caffeine and expensive sneakers against polished floors, but underneath it all was something heavier. Waiting. The first real crack happened during a strategy review. Finance. Operations. Vendor forecasting. Routine. Rick sat at the head of the table while charts rotated across the screen. Normally, this was where he came alive. Instead, he blinked slowly through half the presentation. When someone asked about next quarter allocations, he said, "Let's circle back." 5 minutes later, again, "Let's circle back." The third time, people stopped taking notes. The fourth time, Rick stared at the table for several seconds too long, not confused, lost. Afterward, I caught Kareem in the hallway. "You think he's okay?" Kareem pressed his lips together. "He hasn't taken a real break in years." That's not what I asked. He looked away. Neither of us wanted to say it. Because naming something makes it real. A week later, the company announced an all-hands meeting. Never a good sign. We filled the conference room. Executives lined the walls, junior staff whispered. Then Mei Tanaka, our COO, stepped forward. "Rick will be stepping back from several operational responsibilities over the next quarter while leadership restructuring occurs." The slide behind her appeared. Transitional oversight. Strategic redistribution. Temporary decentralization. Corporate language was funny. You could hide almost anything inside enough syllables. The room stayed quiet. Too quiet. Because everyone understood. Rick wasn't stepping back. He was being removed slowly enough that nobody would panic. Back at my desk, I opened the updated org chart. My stomach dropped. My title had changed. Project Alignment Lead. More departments. More authority. More responsibility. No warning. That evening, I found Rick alone by the windows overlooking downtown. "You okay with the changes?" he asked. "I didn't ask for this." "You didn't need to." He kept staring outside. The skyline reflected across the glass. Cold, sharp, expensive. "I built Stratex to outlast me," he said quietly. "But not like this." I looked at him. He looked smaller lately. Not physically, symbolically. Like illness had started stealing inches from him. "Have you told anyone what's actually happening?" I asked. Silence. Long silence. Then, "I'm not a symbol, Priscilla." He finally looked at me. "I'm a person. Symbols get to crumble quietly." That sentence followed me home. And into sleep. And into the following Tuesday. Because Tuesday was when everything broke. The day itself started normally. Meetings. Coffee. Slack notifications. Then I overheard something near compliance. "If Rick resigns for real, the board's going to scramble." Resigns. Not if. When. The word followed me all day. By evening I stayed late, reviewing rollout logistics. Something pushed me upstairs. Executive floor, half the lights off. Cleaning crews already working. Rick's office door closed. Movement inside. I didn't knock. I opened it. Rick sat behind his desk. Head lowered. Drawer open. Pill bottle beside him. This time the label faced outward. Medical terms. Dosages. Warnings. Evidence. He looked up slowly. "I thought I told you not to barge in." "You didn't." He leaned back. Eyes glassy. "You shouldn't be here." "You shouldn't be alone." A weak laugh. "Still trying to save everybody?" I walked closer. "You're sick." "Nothing. I saw it weeks ago." Still, nothing. Then finally a slow breath. Painful. Heavy, like dragging air through broken glass. "What is it?" I asked quietly. He stared toward the city. "Something manageable." "You keep saying that, because the alternative sounds worse." Then suddenly he shifted. His hand slipped from the desk. His shoulders dropped. Not dramatic, not cinematic, just collapse. Slow, quiet, terrifying. I caught him before he hit the floor. "Rick!" His skin felt cold. Too cold. His breathing shallow. Too shallow. I called emergency services with hands that didn't feel like mine. The EMTs arrived fast. Questions came faster. Medication? Diagnosis? History? I barely had answers. They wheeled him away, and I stayed behind. Standing alone in the office of the man who had once seemed impossible to break. The next morning, company-wide memo. Due to a recent health incident, Rick Carlton will be stepping away from executive duties indefinitely. Indefinitely. One word. Infinite wait. That night, his assistant called. "Priscilla," he asked for you. At the hospital, machines filled the silence. Rick looked smaller inside hospital sheets. Not weaker. Just human. For the first time, I sat beside him, while monitors beeped around us. Eventually his eyes opened. "You can't let them take it," he whispered. "Take what?" He swallowed slowly. "Everything we built." Then he closed his eyes again. I sat there staring at the machines, at the fluorescent lights, at the man who dragged me out of survival mode. And somewhere between those monitor sounds and the smell of sanitizer, I realized something. I wasn't just working at Stratex anymore. I was already carrying part of it.